very, very happy to introduce Shonali Sabharwal to you. A quick intro about Shonali. She's the first practicing nutritionist chef who endorses the macrobiotic diet in India. Okay, and she's won Best Nutritionist Award from Vogue in 2020. And she's the nutritionist to the celebs. And if that isn't dazzling enough, she's a prolific writer who's published 4 books on her vocation. And she writes a lot of columns to, just deconstruct some of the myths about a healthy diet, about how you can use food to heal yourself from just about anything. And as you can see for yourself, she's gorgeous. It looks like she's drunk from the fountain of youth. That glowing skin, that hair. I must confess, I'm bitterly jealous. And another very, very impressive thing I noticed about Shonali is that when I was, going through her website, I was doing my job, I had to do this right. So I'm just going through her website and I noticed that she doesn't have this huge support staff to fob off all queries on. She handles it all personally. With her, you get personalized attention. And I was thinking, nobody does this nowadays. And it's because she treats it as a vocation. It's deeply, deeply personal for her. I could just feel that. And I wanted to ask her about the personal roots of her vocation.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. So, my tryst with macrobiotics started because my father was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer in 1990, I think 6, if I remember correctly. And the doctors pretty much make you a statistic once you're diagnosed, and they give you, you have X number of years ahead of you. He was given 3 years. And of course, to a child, firstborn, and we were very close, so it's like, you're trying to grapple with things and come to terms with things. And I was in the market research business, working with AC Nielsen, rising up the corporate ladder. I was already associate, making associate manager, rising up to be a manager. And I read a book which was written by one Dr. Anthony Satellaro called Recycled by Life. And he talked about how he kept his prostate cancer down for 10 years with an approach called macrobiotics. So I was very intrigued. I read the book cover to cover and wrote to the authorities in America and said, look, I really want to come and study this because I want to know how to keep my father's cancer down and beat this statistic. They've given him 3 years to live. And they said, listen, there's a lady in Dehradun. You first go and work with her and see if you can hack the program. And if you can Indianize it to suit your diet and your palate, then you come and study. And so I did just that, took my mom, took my dad, we landed up in Dehradun. We stayed with a lady called Mona Schwartz, Jewish-American lady who had moved from America permanently to stay in Dehradun. And we studied for about a week, and I went back. And in those days, I wasn't a chef. So I'm a macrobiotic nutritionist and a chef in the same philosophy. And the biggest challenge about feeding people healthy food is satisfying their palate. Because if you've got to keep it healthy 24/7, we've always heard of health food being boring. And I don't believe in that because the way I cook, I ran a successful service for 9 years, a catering service, where I made health food really interesting, and I had all people, walking in and eating from that service with no gluten, no dairy, no white flour, no processed things, sauces made from scratch, and keeping it healthy for them and keeping them challenged with different cuisines, So I think that was my challenge in those days with my father. That's what that's what brought me to the philosophy. And finally, when it came to studying it, I decided to go into a structured program to the US, and one day just got up and kicked up my market research job and just, changed careers, and I found myself on a Greyhound from New York to Boston to go and study the program.
So I wanted to ask you if you could, for the uninitiated, could you just break down the macrobiotic diet for us? Because there's like so much information on Instagram. They have these 30-second clips where they bandy all these terms about. You have integrative medicine, you have lifestyle and functional, right? So how does the macrobiotic diet differ from this? How does it stand out? How is it different from all those fad diets like your keto, your intermittent fasting, your paleo?
So I think first thing to look at is the history of the diet. I think anything you do has to have, like anyone you trust, any product you use has to have a credibility factor. I always believe in that. And then you build up a relationship with that brand, or you build up that relationship with whatever you're going to do. It's like, you know, your Colgate toothpaste. You have a relationship with it. You've had a relationship with it for so long. And food is something which to me is food entrains you. You have a very, you and your food have a very intimate relationship. You know, if you look at the things you eat passionately, it's a very intimate relationship with food. And I think when I looked at macrobiotics, I also looked at, hey, why don't I do Ayurveda? You know, we are an age-old tradition. We've had this in India for so long. Why should I not study Ayurveda? And the answer to that was that I was looking for something quick, because Ayurvedic diet was not being taught formally as a separate subject in those days to the lay person. So I didn't find much. And then the macrobiotic philosophy originates from the Okinawa Islands of Japan, where they have the largest lot of centenarians living till the age of 100 and living fine with all their mental faculties in place and with all their physical faculties in place. And I found it very fascinating. And coming from the market research tradition, I also thought, look, I do what Ashwin Sanghi does. I need to break it down. I need to understand that this is going to work. And I read a lot of books which said, hey, you know, I did macrobiotics for X years, it cured my cancer. I did macrobiotics, it cured my rheumatoid arthritis. I did macrobiotics, it cured my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I was fascinated by the research behind it. And the person who, in the 1920s, got it out of the Okinawa island and put it back on the map, had actually cured himself of tuberculosis, and had also, come and studied the Charak Samhita. That fascinated me, because he had come and studied Ayurvedic texts and then said, okay, we're going to look at this body, which is a total system. It's made up of the pathways, the nerve pathways. There are nadis in it, what traditional Chinese medicine calls meridian lines. And we're going to look at how we're going to function by flushing these meridian lines and then keeping you healthy. So that's what drew me to macrobiotics. To come to the second part of your question, functional medicine also came about, and basically the goal is the same. The goal of a Ayurvedic practitioner, a macrobiotic practitioner, or a functional medicine practitioner is to bring you back into balance by not suppressing the symptoms. Like conventional medicine, if you had a headache, would give you a pill, right? So homeopathy, for example, that's another system that looks at psychosomatic, looking at your disease from a psychosomatic angle. Similarly, in macrobiotics, we look at the cause of the problem. So we look at eliminating the cause. So we work with foods to help you eliminate the cause. Functional medicine was developed by a system of doctors, was developed by doctors I think in 1991, and developed also as a system for doctors to use nutrition to help their patients, right? Integrative medicine is something that macrobiotics encompasses, because integration of using lifestyle factors, nutrition, your psychological stress-related factors, and integrating into one system becomes integrative. Unfortunately, because everybody needs something to lean on, and there are so many people, sorry to say, with all due respect, social media has made it a terrible place for everybody to dish out advice, and they need something to lean on. So these terms are being used very loosely. That's the reason why you have so many terms.
Okay, now I'm going to play devil's advocate. So, what are you going to say to someone? You mentioned Okinawa. You mentioned that some people think it's a boring diet to follow. So, when you said Okinawa, immediately I'm thinking of raw fish. And I'm thinking, why would I want to eat raw fish when I can have deep fried fish, which is spicy and yummy? And we have this intimate relationship with food. And some of us, it's like the taste, the sensory pleasure of it, right? I mean, personally, I can't look a chocolate cake in the eye and say no, even if I know it's made of sugar and the refined flour, which is such a devil nowadays. And you know, you look at all those Instagram influencers, and it's like they give you these shortcuts, right? You can opt for surgery, and if you want glowing skin, you can get PRP. Those celebs get those PRP treatments for their hair, and they all look so amazing. So we think to ourselves, we can have our cake and eat it too. What would you say to us, you know, to those of us who say, just damn it, you live only once, let's eat whatever the hell we want?
I would say do it. Because I would say, you know, it's your consciousness, right? It's what you want. And the choice lies with you. I decided in my 20s, way before I came to this philosophy, that I'm not going to do that. I always was in the search of something that kept me healthy 24/7, and I was a foodie. My parents are from pre-partition Pakistan. My dad had very strong taste. He was from Rawalpindi. My mother was from Sialkot. She's a vegetarian. God bless her. And I decided I need to know how to eat healthy, but eat well and enjoy my chocolate cake without the sugar, minus the dairy, whatever, the way I live. And I need to be happy. And I need to do it 24/7 so I'm healthy, right? I also need to defy, in a way, because I do Panchakarma and I've married my macrobiotic philosophy with Ayurveda, because I work closely with an Ayurvedic down south where we use plant-based adaptogens to work with people who have difficult diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, for example. So I also wanted to look at this whole aging process, like you say. So if you want to, you know, if you're going to eat your sugar, you're going to get your fine lines. You're going to get sagging skin. You're going to gobble up all that collagen. So if you've chosen that path, then please be happy and go and do the Botox, because that's what you choose to do. But if you want to, you know, not have that fine line and not have your collagen gobbled up and not let your skin look leathery and have gorgeous hair, whatever you may say, the outward manifestations of your inward health, then you have to, you know, be mindful of the way you live your life. So it's each to his own. It's what you choose. And when I have clients who come to me and say, you know, can we just do this today? And I say, listen, please do it, because you'll recognize what it's done to you, and then you'll automatically come back to the middle path, you know? So it's really your choice.
She's very sweet, no? I thought she was going to be some sort of food, vegan, macrobiotic Nazi, but she's not. You know, just before the session, we were outside, and I had a cup of tea, and I was wondering, it was tea with milk and sugar. My dad's a coffee exporter, by the way, and he drinks his coffee black. Me, on the other hand, I need milk and sugar. And he says, don't call it coffee. That's dessert. Just don't call it coffee. So I was thinking, oh my God, she's going to be worse than dad. She's going to tea shame me. But she wasn't like that at all. She was very chill, and, you know, so I just love that about her. So now my question is, what would you say are the biggest challenges faced by those who want to change their lifestyle, who want to take up this macrobiotic diet, but they tell you, I keep succumbing to temptation, I fail repeatedly. What is the root of the problem here? Is it that societal pressure to be skinny? Okay, let's not beat around the bush. You know, everybody loves skinny. It translates into big bucks. An actress loses tons of weight, she gets these huge endorsements and big fat checks. So yeah, society values skinny people, hot people. So, you know, if you're fat shamed. It's not, they always tell you it's about inner beauty. It's about, you know, being fit. It's about, you know, making these healthier choices. But the reality of it is that skinny people are celebrated everywhere. If you go somewhere, people say, oh, have you lost weight, with a smile? Or they'll say, oh, you put on weight. So, you know, is it like this societal pressure which kind of makes it, which amplifies the difficulties of embracing this healthy lifestyle? What is the trigger here?
See, I don't think so. I think you should be able to, my fifth book, my books have always come out of the stories of my life, since we're talking at the festival, I should say so, that my 5th book was on perimenopause, and it was on the preceding years to menopause, what all women go through, and why women are going through so much of problems during their perimenopausal years, and why are we not talking about it? Because our mothers used to not talk about it. You know, they just go through life and not discuss their symptoms. And our fathers never understood what the mothers were going through. And the women who go through that situation are always kind of told, oh, you're going through, you know, that time of the month, so stay away from mom, that kind of attitude. I believe that your health is not just your physical health, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. It all comes together and then forms a whole system within you, and that's health. And everybody's yardsticks of health are different. You know, while someone's yardstick may be skinny, my yardsticks for health, for example, are abundant energy, because I write so much and I content create so much, clarity of thought, clarity of speech. Okay, you shouldn't be bringing up anything negative and shouldn't be riled by the foods you eat. And also, you know, to sleep well and to have abundant energy to move my body, to exercise. To me, those are my yardsticks. And in my field, there's a lot of this body shaming which goes on where, you know, everything is geared to weight. And I felt one of the biggest things I did with my last book was bring this whole thing up, that you have to accept yourself for the stage of life that you are in, you know. Shonali is no longer the 20-year-old Shonali who was only 48 kilos, okay? I have to accept the fact that today I'm at a different age, different stage, and my body shape is going to change. The moment I used to be called Silk Smita in school because I had thunder thighs, okay? And I worked so hard on them because 20 years, when I was 20, 25 years old, I started working on them, and today I can say that I've beaten that, you know, concept that people had of me, and because I worked really hard. So my yardstick for health, or your yardstick of health, or your yardstick of health is going to be different. And we have to accept the stage we are in and the age we are at. And yes, we can get carried away with Instagram. And yes, I've done, let me tell you, I do a lot of Bollywood celebrities. I did their meals for them. And what you see on the camera, what you see in front of you, is not even a shadow of what actually is behind the scenes. Because a lot of them are dealing with endometriosis, a lot of them are dealing with PCOS, a lot of them are dealing with, you know, problems of thyroid, but they will not talk about it. You see, because it goes against the profession to talk about it. Yet they are probably not eating after 5 o'clock, or, you know, they're doing these crazy things, intermittent fasting, or whatever they choose to do to keep themselves fit. Or some of them even eat very healthy, okay? So I think it's a very individual thing, you know. You have to, health is very personal, and your relationship to food is also personal, you know. So, and you need to know how to work with balance. So, one of the biggest culprits of our civilization is sugar. We all know that. Okay, we know sugar doesn't work for us. We know it you know, pushes our moods out of whack. We know it depletes minerals in our body. We know what sugar does to us, but yet we can't live without it. Now, if you've embarked upon a healthy journey and you need to fix that sugar craving, the best way to do it is to plug in a whole grain. So if you eat a millet or a brown rice or a red rice for breakfast, and you do something at lunch and you do something at dinner, whether you do it in a roti or you do it on the side, it's giving you sustained complex carbohydrate sugars to fix your sugar craving, to actually keep your sugar craving down. So, and then people, when I do that, people say, oh my God, it's so carb heavy. But hey, you know, you need carbs to fuel your mind, to give your brain the energy, to fuel your muscle. So I think that in macrobiotics, in the lineage that I come from, anyone who comes to me, I was telling Anuja before, I don't like leaving them and saying, you know, if someone comes to me and says, hey, I'm a meat eater, and I'm always going to be a meat eater, I'm not going to give it up. But can you fix me despite that? I'm not going to say, no, I can't because I'm plant-based. I can't be that dogmatic. My philosophy is you should leave someone with, even if it's a little bit, and you can change them with a little bit. you've impacted their lives. So if you give them a lot of greens, it makes balance with their meat, because meat creates an acidic condition. It takes longer to digest. It goes through the digestive system and it's far complex when it's digesting. So balancing it with vegetables and greens is something that balances the meat, okay? So you need to know how to make balance in people's lives. That's health, right? You need to work with them and you need to know how to help them make balance.
Balance and live and let live. And I'm sorry, you mentioned Silk Smitha. I just want to say you would have been huge in South India. At one time, it was a prerequisite for all the heroines to have thunder thighs.
Oh,
and
really?
I'm pretty sure there's a temple in Tamil Nadu for Silk Smitha.
Really?
Yeah, South Indian guys at one point, they were big on curves, trust me. So you would have been huge. Whereas me, they used to call me plum pudding or fatty boomalati. You know, and I was telling my daughter this story about how they call me fatty boomalati. And I said, I used to be fat. She said, Ma, you are still fat. so the fat demons and I have this very complicated relationship. So when she said that, I was just thinking about it. And when I was, there was this thing I wanted to ask you. I noticed that you mentioned that macrobiotic diet can be used to heal, that it can be a very valuable tool in disease management. And I believe you did mention that it's been found to help cure cancer, the big C word, and I think lung diseases and everything from acne to alopecia, a whole host of bodily ailments. So could you just tell us how, it's a pretty novel concept for a lot of us, that food can be medicine, that it can heal you.
Actually, it's not a novel concept because Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So everything, and the body has an innate wisdom to reverse and give you back multifold. If you give it back, give it the positive stimuli, right? Disease comes from a state of imbalance. So someone who has depression could have depression for various reasons. It could be low vitamin D. It could be that their neurotransmitters aren't firing. It could be that they have poor gut function. Similarly, inflammation, that's the big buzzword today, could lead to diseases like cancer, thyroid, diabetes, okay? So when we look at disease, we look at you as a complete system, as a holistic system. And I hate using the term heal because heal sounds very like I'm some mother sitting up there on the hill healing. I'm not Ma Shanali. I use the term remission. I like that term because you can help people manage their diseases better by using the right foods and choosing the right foods to keep their blood condition healthy, to keep their gut microbiome healthy. You've heard that word, it's being used a lot today. So if you can help people to understand that, hey, this is what doesn't work for my condition. I'll give you an example, rheumatoid arthritis, for example. It's a result of inflammation, right? Chronic inflammation in the joints. And people are put on a drug called methotrexate. And methotrexate basically keeps the symptoms at bay. But it's a very powerful medication because it's almost like giving a chemo drug to a patient. It's got a lot of side effects. Now, the combination of food and Ayurveda really works very well to keep the symptoms of arthritis down. And if you can teach someone who has rheumatoid arthritis that, look, this is the way you eat, and if you use plant-based adaptogens, you are going to achieve the same results that you achieved with methotrexate without any side effects, I think that's a winning combination for them. So a lot of people believe and a lot of people don't. So there are people who come to me saying, hey, look, we're not going to get off our methotrexate. So I'll say, okay, let's work towards you battling what methotrexate is going to do to you better, the side effects of methotrexate, because the side effects will come, so you warn them that that's going to be there, but let's work on those side effects. But if someone was willing to take a chance and get up, because after all, you are the master of your destiny. If someone says, hey, and I've had many people, I want to cure my RA or keep it in remission and reverse it with your foods and I'll do Ayurveda, okay? Winning combination because I've seen a lot of reversals and we've kept the condition in remission for very, very long. They'll get a relapse if they veer off terribly from the program, but they don't get relapses. So it's similar with any breast cancer survivor, or it's similar with any person who has cancer. Of course, a lot of cancer patients come to you in the fag end, when they are beaten down with chemo, radiation, and the body doesn't have the innate ability to fight back. See, the body has to also have its own inner rhythms to, battle disease. So I have now been working for like almost 20 years, and I've looked at diseases from Candida, irritable bowel syndrome, that's ulcerative colitis. We do Crohn's disease. I've done Crohn's disease in a 5-year-old. From rheumatoid arthritis to lupus. These are very tough conditions, And my belief is that I don't say no to anything or anyone, because I truly believe that food really has the power to heal you. The big challenges are the no's, the things that we tell these people who have chronic diseases to stay off. For example, you have to tell them, stay off sugar, stay off dairy, stay off processed food, stay off white flour, maida, okay? And these become challenges for them to handle, because if you're going to take away the cup of tea with milk and sugar for a person who has a chronic disease, it's going to be hard for them. So then you have to assist them with substitutes, and they have to be they have to also think, hey, if I have this, it's going to add to my inflammation. So it's a lot of education. And in my line of work, it's psychology of the food, psychology of the disease, and psychology of the client. So we look at all those 3 components to help them balance their condition.
So now, when you talked about using macrobiotics to, as a weapon in disease management, I was just thinking about this thing which has gone viral on the internet recently. So you have this South Indian actress, Samantha, and the liver doctor.
I saw that,
yeah. So it was about how she recommended alternate healing for her respiratory illness, and the liver doctor really doubled down. He said that in any other country she would be arrested for spreading false information. He called her science and medicine illiterate. It was quite the attack, and he has a lot of support. So I was wondering if there's any pushback from traditional medical practitioners against the use of macrobiotics to heal, because maybe it's a territory thing. This is our turf. We heal diseases. Believe in the tablets.
No, there's nothing like that. I think she was wrong. You cannot assume the mantle just because you're an actress to put out crappy information. Sorry to say, pardon the use of the language. People are taking their Instagram handles way too seriously for themselves. They should only be there if they're qualified enough to be there. So what she did was wrong, and if the liver doctor called it out, I'm glad he did, because I would have called her out in some time. Unfortunately, it happened when I left Bombay. I would have not called her out publicly, but I would have said something about it. Not that my opinion matters, but my opinion matters to the people who want to hear something rectified, okay? Unfortunately, the health industry in our country is making sicker people because of what social media is dishing out to you. And you have to really trust the source that you're going to go to, okay? You have to do homework, you have to research them, you have to know where they are coming from, because most social media influencers are now jumping on this health bandwagon and trying to become health coaches to people. And it's not right. It's not right, because you're ruining people's life. What if someone really liked her and followed her and did it and ended up sicker than they were, So I think trust is really important. And, the social media is FOMO and fear of missing out, if many of you don't know that word. And you have to take social media with a pinch of salt, right? Today I've written 5 books, and I've seen what my first book did in 2012 and what my last book did in 2022, and there's a world of difference, because not too many people are reading because they're consuming media visually. Reels have become your way of consuming information. And the credibility and the passion that we try to build with our book, the writing that we do, is somewhere getting lost. And I'm seeing that happen, sorry to say, even with our publishers, because our publishers are also looking at people with high social media numbers. You know, if you have a good social media following, they lap up your book. But if you have a great idea and you're a person who doesn't have high social media numbers, they're not looking at you anymore. It's sad. It's really sad what's going on. So I just feel we have to become very intelligent on sifting out the information that's being thrown out to us, and also become more and more research has to be done on the people that you follow and the people that you believe in.
Fair enough. So we have about 10 minutes. Does anyone in the audience have questions for Shonali? You can ask her. Yeah.
So macro, sir, means large, and bios means life. So it's a larger than life approach to eating right 24/7. So that's why it's called macrobiotics. So the basic philosophy is to strengthen what we call your blood condition. If your blood condition is strong and your immune system stays strong, and your immune system is your gut barrier. Everything that starts with your gut barrier, right? So infections come to you also because your gut barrier is weak. So if we work at strengthening that and keep your infections at bay, we strive to do that so that your blood condition stays healthy and your immune system becomes healthy. So in the long run, an approach should be followed where your gut barrier and gut integrity is maintained. Okay? Once you get the virus, you will take medication for some time. Everybody will go to the doctor. But those medications also knock you down. Let's say you get malaria. Okay? The medication knocks you down because the medication for malaria is very strong. But now you're recovering. Now you want to strengthen your immune system. That's when you get onto a good eating plan so that you can strengthen the gut, strengthen the immune system, and you don't get another bout of malaria again. So that's the way we work, sir.
My question today is about people suffering with diabetes.
Yes.
Entire population in the world, almost 91 plus is diabetic. Now, doctors tell us, and social media as well, about the reversal in diabetes. So, when we tried for reversal, we fall like a patient on insulin 3 or 4 times a day. He says, stop insulin, just take 1 tablet and manage your diet. Now, once we do that, then we start getting UTI and we suffer from it. And then we go back to the doctor. Now he says, well, now sugar's soar. They just go very high because you have stopped your insulin, you have stopped your medication, you're taking metformin or you're taking something else along with insulin.
Yes.
And then you stop it, and then you get UTI, and then you don't know what to do. Then you go to your other doctor. He says, why do you do this? You have, please don't listen to all this. Otherwise, you're going to fall really sick. You're already on insulin, you're on diabetic medication, and he says reversal. He tells me to go to a place for a test where I get my blood test done. He said, your cells are really got a power to produce to whatever your pancreas are producing insulin, and the cells are really absorbing it. You don't need at all to take any insulin. You just need to manage your diet and stop all your medications. And that's what I did. But then I go back. I get very high UTI. I fall sick. Go back to my physician. He says, why did you do this? This is what I have experienced myself. So would you throw a light upon whether we really believe in this reversal, diabetic reversal, or not?
So here's the story behind what you're saying. First of all, if you're insulin dependent, I would tread very carefully, okay? Because I would not just go and stop my insulin because someone told me to stop it. I would be under my diabetologist and listen to him, or my endocrinologist, listening to them. Having said that, if you sketch a plan for yourself to better manage your insulin and start getting your insulin down the amount you're using slowly, that can be achieved, all right, to manage your diabetes better. Okay, because after all, what are you aiming for? You're aiming to get rid of being insulin dependent so you can come down to the pill. And then you're hoping that at some point your sugars will be so great that you won't even need the pill. That's diabetes reversal, right? But with someone who is insulin dependent, it becomes a little tricky. And I have worked with a patient who is insulin dependent, and a few of them where we sketch out a plan, an eating plan, where they eat the foods at the right time and they eat the foods as prescribed, and they have come down from their insulin to the pill. That also is a big achievement for someone who's got diabetes. Okay? Now, if you continue to manage that system better, okay, you can't just stop. You can't just go to someone and someone says stop and you're great. No. You have to work closely with, and we worked with the endocrinologist. So the person whose insulin we managed to get down and who went on to the pill, and his wife, who also had diabetes, we managed to get her the dosage that she took of her pill down. We worked closely with the endocrinologist, always touching base as to what we're doing, the changes we're making, what they're eating, okay? But if you're one of those people who is going to eat your sweets and is going to eat, I'm just saying, hypothetically, someone who doesn't make any changes in the eating patterns, and someone's not guiding you how to do it, and then you expect that this will change, that's not going to happen. Because the changes and the enzymes you need to introduce at meal times, where your food's being processed differently, the kind of stuff that you need to eat is a little different for diabetic protocol. So I won't believe someone who tells you, do it, stop it, you know? Okay. So I really can't say how people are practicing. All I know is that diabetes is something you have to work together with the patient and very closely. In the sense, people actually send me their sugar readings every day. I actually get to see, they wear the glucometer and I see their readings. So we know how their sugars are working in the day to help them through diabetes. Yeah, so I won't just go blind and, follow someone. I would listen to your physician.
Yeah. Do we have time for one last question?
Yeah, hello ma'am. Yeah, here. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Yes. Just to put a more perspective on this topic, there was an earlier session outside regarding millets, which is very important part of the diet system here.
Yes.
So what is your thoughts on the system of diet, or comparing the Indian system of what Ayurveda might say? What should be the right diet, if you can call it?
This will be the last question.
What should be the right diet? Is
Right
that your
diet
question?
to our country, say what Ayurveda was saying, and also in contrast with what the macrobiotic diet you are trying.
It conflicts?
No, I'm not asking conflict, but what is your thoughts on both of it, considering the ancient system of diet, what was practiced here in India, and also the macrobiotic diet?
Both the systems are very close to each other. Both systems don't believe in, Ayurvedic system still believes in cow's milk. The macrobiotic system doesn't believe in cow's milk. I'm giving you the similarities and differences. Both systems believe in grain, whole grain. When I say whole grain, I mean unpolished grain. Brown rice, red rice, matta rice, your millets, all your millets. So, be it bajra, nachni, ragi, jawar, whatever you digest. Both systems, if I'm going to strip the food groups, both system believes in lentils and legumes. Both systems believe in vegetables. Both systems advocate cooked greens, not raw greens. Okay? Both systems don't believe in yogurt. Ayurveda and macrobiotics both. Both systems don't advocate yogurt. Okay? Ayurvedic system hasn't yet understood the power of, and I'm going to say this with a lot of confidence here and take the stand, of what fermented foods can do for you. Ayurveda tradition believes in buttermilk and believes in arishtams. All right? Correct me if I'm wrong, because there's someone sitting here who knows the Ayurvedic system. And the macrobiotic system leans very heavily on lactic acid bacterial fermentation because they believe that every meal should have enough enzymes so you digest the meal better. So things like fermented vegetables, fermented with salt, or quick pickled vegetables in saltwater brine. We believe in a lot of that, and we give our patients a lot of fermented foods. That goes contrary to a lot of people who have arthritic ailment like rheumatoid arthritis, or someone who's coming from the tradition and has gone to an Ayurvedic practitioner, and the Ayurveda has said, don't eat fermented foods, but I'm saying eat. And I advocate eating, all right? That's the big difference there. Other than that, raw is true to both traditions. So raw food, both traditions don't advocate raw. They advocate more cooked foods, okay? And I believe season is very important. So you have to modulate your eating habits to the season, all right?
Okay.
So, I mean, that's the similarities and the differences.
Okay, thank you, Shonali. Could I ask if you have any more questions, please meet her outside. We do need to get into the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please please join me in welcoming Ashwini Ranjan and Professor Nagarna.